All right, guys, we're just a week away from the end of the quarter. That means Friday, you have coming up your quarter final. So I put together a review. Remember, the final is going to have 10 questions from the first test and 10 questions from the second test. So this review is going to cover kind of the fundamentals that you need to know for that final here in a couple of days. So number one, first thing that you need to know, how to rewrite the following expression using each base only once. So 5 squared times 5/8. Please don't plug that in the calculator. It wants you to write this in exponential notation. So the 5, because they both have a base of 5, we can combine these. And the 2 and the 8, we actually add those together. So 5 squared times 5 to the 8th is just 5 to the 10th power. Something that you should all be pretty good at this point. Number two, another thing you'll need to remember how to do. What about these negative exponents? Not only do I have a negative exponent, I'm taking a to the negative 5th and I'm raising it to the 2nd power. So remember, if you're taking an exponent and raising it to another exponent, you multiply those two together. So this becomes a to the negative 10th power. But if I look at my answer, it says to use positive exponents only. So I need to get rid of this negative exponent, and I do that by moving it to the bottom of the fraction and leaving a 1 on top. So your answer would be 1 over a to the 10th power. So to get rid of that negative, we just move it to the bottom. Number 3. Write the following expression involving radicals in exponential notation. So it gives it to us in radical form, and it wants us to change it into exponential form, meaning there's going to be an exponent. The way that we do that is this 5 up here, that little 5 in the root, that means the 5th root, becomes the bottom of our fraction. So this just becomes x, and it's still raised to the 2nd power, but underneath the 2, we put the 5. So it's x raised to the 2/5 power. That little 5 on the outside goes on the bottom of the fraction. The squared stays on top. So it'd be x raised to the 2/5. All right, number 4. It wants us to do the same thing. That's weird. One of them should be having you go the other way. Oh, well, maybe I accidentally put 2 of the same on the test. Lucky you, because these are easy. This little 7 on the outside just goes to the bottom of the fraction. I put it underneath the exponent 5. So my answer is x raised to the 5/7 power. So that little 7 goes to the bottom. Number 5. Simplify. 9b squared minus 6b squared. Well, if I have 9b squareds and I'm minusing 6b squareds, that's just like saying 9x minus 6x or saying 9 minus 6. I have 9 of them. I'm subtracting 6, so I'm left over with 3b squareds. And that would be my answer. Okay, number 6. Hopefully your test goes pretty quick here. Factor out the greatest common factor. Now, it doesn't just want the greatest common factor. It wants you to factor it out. So first thing we need to do is figure out what the greatest common factor is. I'm looking for something that goes into 20 and 28, which is going to be a 4. And I'm looking for, this has x squared, this has x. So the biggest x I can pull out is just 1, because this one I can't pull out more than 1. So now I'm going to undistribute. I'm going to take this 4x and I'm going to pull it out of each of these terms. So 20 divided by 4 is 5, and x squared divided by x leaves me with 1x. And then I have a minus. 28 divided by 4 is 7. X divided by x is 1, so I don't need to put anything there. So that is what it looks like when I factor out the greatest common factor. There's my greatest common factor, but I factored it out, so there's my final answer. On the test, this one, a lot of you wrote the greatest common factor, or you wrote the parenthesis part, but you didn't put them together. Make sure you do both on this final. All right, number 7, simplify the product. This just means FOIL, right? We want to simplify. So I do first times first. X times x is x squared. Outside, x times 4 is 4x's. Inside, 3 times x is 3x's. And last, 3 times 4 is 12. And then here I combine like terms. 4x, 3x, those add together to be 7x. So I have x squared plus 7x plus 12. And that would be your final answer because nothing else combines. Okay, number 8, find the product. Same idea, it just gives it to us a little bit differently. 2x plus 9 in parentheses squared. That squared means there's 2 of these parentheses. So 2x plus 9 times 2x plus 9. So now I just FOIL. First times first. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. Outside, 2x times 9 is 18x. Inside, 9 times 2x is another 18x. And then last, 9 times 9 is 81. So combine like terms. Those x's go together. 4x squared plus 36x plus 81. Remember, when you're adding things together, the exponent doesn't change. This doesn't become 36x squared. We just have 18x's. We're adding 18 more. All right, number 9. Factor the expression. So what it wants are 2 parentheses that multiply so that when we FOIL, we get x squared plus 9x plus 20. So there's nothing in front of x squared, which makes this problem a little bit easier. So I'm looking for factors of 20 that add up to 9. So factors of 20 are 10 and 2, 20 and 1, 5 and 4. Now, if they multiply to be a positive and add up to be a positive, then I know that they're both positive numbers. So I think I'm done. I think it's 5 and 4. 5 plus 4 is 9, which gives me 9 right there. So because there's nothing in front of x squared, all I have to do is plug these right into my parentheses for my answers. X plus 5, x plus 4. Now on the test, factor the expression. That's all it wants me to do is factor. You're going to have other questions that tell you to solve by factoring. On those, this is just the first step. Then you need to solve it. But on this one, it just wants us to factor so we can move on. Factor the expression. Same thing, except for this time, we have a number out in front of the x squared. So I can't just look for factors of not -9. I have to look for factors of -18 that add up to 3. A positive 3, which means that I'm going to have a positive and a negative because they multiply to be a negative. So 18 is 9 and 2. If they add up to be a positive, that means the bigger number is my positive. 9 and -2 are 7. That's too big. 6 and 3. Again, the bigger number is my positive. So 6 minus 3 is 3. So those are the factors I'm going to use. But because of this 2 out in front of the x squared, I can't just plug these into my parentheses. I'm not done yet. I have to, this is the one that takes all the extra steps. We take these factors and I plug them in the middle of the equation. Instead of 3x, I'm going to plug in these. So I'm going to get 2x squared, and then I'm going to put minus 3x plus 6x minus 9. I did the minus first because I want the sign of this term to be the same as this one, just to make my factoring out a little bit easier. The biggest thing that goes into 2x squared and 3x, I'm looking for the greatest common factor, is just x. And when I pull that out, I'm left with a 2x because 2 divided by 1 is 2, x squared divided by x is x, minus 3 divided by 1 is still 3, x divided by x is 1. On this one, my greatest common factor is a 3. And when I do 6 divided by 3, I'm left with x. Negative 9 divided by 3, I'm left with negative 3. So my answer, 2x. 6 divided by 3 is 2x's minus 3. My parentheses are the same, so that's one of my answers. My other answer is x plus 3. So that is my factored expression. Again, it didn't say to solve, so I'm done. I don't have to do anything else. And that was what number was that? Number 10. So that should take care of Unit 1 questions. Okay, the rest of the questions should be from the test that you just took this week. So number 11 here. Graph the function, identify the domain and the range. So what x squared plus 13, it wants you to graph it. So we just need to pick the correct one over there. So I'm just going to plug it into my calculator to see what it looks like. X squared plus 13. And then I'm going to graph because I just want to know what this thing looks like. And did I plug it in right? X squared plus 13. X squared plus 13. Yeah, so we better change our zoom a little bit because zoom standard's probably not going to work because of that plus 13. So my answer's here. It's just I'm not zoomed out far enough to see it. So let's change this, my x min to negative 20, my x max to 20. Let's change my y minimum to negative 20 and my y max to 20. Just so that I can see my graph a little bit better. And there it is. All right, so my graph is in the middle and it's facing up. So when I look at my picture, it's definitely not that one and it's definitely not that one. So now I just need to know, is it start below the x-axis or above? So if I look at my picture again, it's above the x-axis. So this one doesn't work. So my correct answer would be C. This is what the graph looks like. Now it wants me to identify the domain. What are all the x values? And like everything else we've done so far, the domain, we can plug in anything we want. All real numbers. We can plug anything we want into the function. The range is all of the outputs. The outputs can't be anything we want because there aren't any outputs down here, my y values. There's nothing down on this part of the graph. So if I look at my y values, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 is my smallest y value right there. So that means that y is going to be greater than or equal to 13 because it's everything bigger than 13, nothing smaller. All right, number 12. Solve the equation by finding square roots. 98b squared equals 2. All we have to do is solve for b. Because there's no b term, I just do my railroad tracks. I'm going to divide by 98. I'm going to divide by 98. So b squared, if you simplify this, that becomes 1 over 49. And then if I take the square root of both sides, b equals 1/7. On your calculator, if I do 2 divided by 98, it's going to give me a decimal. So I can hit math and I can turn that decimal into a fraction and it'll turn it into a fraction for me, 1 over 49. Then when I take the square root of it, second square root, I can, where's my second answer, right? So that means second square root, And then answer means it's going to take this and plug it underneath the square root. And when I hit enter, it gives me a 1/7 answer. That's probably the easiest way to do it, or you could do a decimal all the way to the end and then hit the fraction button. But one of my answers is 1/7, but the other answer that my calculator does not give me is the negative 1/7. Remember, I have two answers when I square root something, a positive and a negative. So my answer would be 1/7 and negative 1/7. Don't put those in parentheses, just put them separate like that. All right, number 13, solve by factoring. 5v squared minus 11v equals 12. First of all, we need it in standard form. We can't have it equal 12. It needs to equal 0. So 5v squared minus 11v minus 12 equals 0. So it says to solve by factoring, which I'll do for the video. But if you don't like factoring, remember, you are more than welcome to just plug this into the quadratic formula. But I'm going to factor. This 5 causes us a little bit of extra work because I have to times it by the negative 12. I get negative 60. So factors of negative 60 that add up to negative 11 are going to be 15 and 4. Negative 15, positive 4 add up to negative 11. So I'm going to change this to 5v squared, and I'm going to take these and plug them in for that middle number right there, that negative 11. So 5v squared minus 15v plus 4v minus 12 equals 0. Now I find out my greatest common factor of each side, 5v, and 15v is going to be 5v is what I factor out, and I'm left with v minus 3 on this side. Over here, my greatest common factor is the 4. I pull it out, and I'm left with v minus 3 equals 0. So these parentheses match. That's one of my parentheses answers. My other one is 5v. Oops, 5v, not 5, 4. 5v plus 4 equals 0. You are not done, okay? You factored it. Congratulations. But we need to solve, which means our answer needs to be v equals something. This was just the first step. These two factors, this parenthesis and this parenthesis, multiply to be 0. That means that this one is 0 or this one is 0. So to finish solving it, I have to set each of those equal to 0. V minus 3 equals 0. Railroad track, add 3, v equals 3. So one of my answers is 3. This one I set equal to 0. 5v plus 4 equals 0. Why do I keep writing a 4? 5v plus 4. Railroad tracks, minus 4, minus 4. 5v equals negative 4. Divide by 5, divide by 5. V equals negative 4/5. So V is 3 and negative 4/5 would be your answer. If you're not sure if that's right, plug it in your calculator, this function right here. Well, not that one because we don't want it to equal 12. Plug in this function into your calculator and look at where it crosses the x-axis, and it should cross at 3 and in between negative 1 and 0. If it doesn't, then we did. All right, guys, number 14. Excuse me. It looks really messy, but it actually sets up the picture for you. It says that you have this swimming pool with a path around it, and it wants to know the width of the path. It gives you the dimensions of everything right here. From one corner to the other is 18 plus 2x, and this one right here is 8 plus 2x. So basically, your base is 18 plus 2x, and 8 plus 2x is your height. And we know the area of a rectangle is base times height. So base, 18 plus 2x, times height, which is 8 plus 2x. And that equals the area, which my problem tells me the area is 504. So now I just have to simplify this and get it in standard form so that I can use the quadratic formula. 18 times 8, I'm going to FOIL, is 144. 18 times 2x is 16x. 2x times 8 is 16x. And 2x times 2x is 14x 14. Wow, 4x squared. 18 times 2x, that's 36x. Wow, I'm off to a bad start here. Too many math problems in one day. And that still equals 504. So when I combine like terms, 36x and 16x add together to be 52x, I hope, plus 4x squared equals 504. And then I have this 144 out front. I don't like having my x squared over here, especially with the quadratic formula. I don't want to use the wrong number. So I'm going to put that out front. 4x squared plus 52x plus 144 equals 504. I'm trying to get this in standard form. So it needs to equal 0 by minusing 504 from that side and minus 504 from this side. So 4x squared plus 52x, 144 minus 504 is negative 360, and that is going to equal 0. So now I can set up my quadratic formula. A equals 4, B equals 52, C equals negative 36. So x equals negative B, 52, plus or minus the square root, B squared, so 52 squared minus 4 times A, which is 4, times C, which is negative 360, all divided by 2 times A, which is 4. So when I simplify, negative 52 plus minus the square root, let's put this big ugly mess in the calculator. If I go to my y equals 52, whoa, not y equals. Go back to my home screen. 52 squared minus 4 parenthesis A. I already forgot my numbers. A is 4 and C is 360. So 4 times A times negative 360. Enter. Underneath my square root is 8464. So 8464. All of that divided by 2 times 4, which is 8. So this equals negative 52 plus minus the square root of 8464. Let's do second square root. 8464 is 92. So plus 92 divided by 8. Now, this is where my problem separates into negative 52 plus 92 divided by 8 and negative 52 minus 92 divided by 8. I've got two answers because this is a quadratic. I'm going to ignore this one because a negative minus a negative becomes more negative, and I don't care about my negative answer. I want my positive distance answer. So I'm going to focus on this one. Negative 52 plus 92 is 40 divided by 8. 40 divided by 8 is just 5. And there's my answer. X is equal to 5. That's the width of my path. Okay. On the test, you should come up with a nice width. It's not going to be some ugly decimal. It's going to be a nice, reasonable number, even if these are different numbers for you. Yours might be really big. It's still going to come out to be a nice number. Okay. All right. Number 15. Graph the parabola, identify the vertex. Y equals negative 5x squared. So I'm going to graph it. Y equals negative 5x squared. Hit enter. Look at my graph. So it's right in the middle. Maybe we should zoom our standard zoom. It's right in the middle and it's pointing down. So when I look at my options, that one's pointing up. That one's pointing down. This one's pointing up. This one's pointing down, but look at how wide it is. That's not going to be my answer. My answer is going to be B. And the vertex is right where it changes direction, which on this problem, if I just look at my graph, it's right there at the origin at 0, 0. So that would be my vertex. If you can't remember how to find the vertex, well, look at it. Or if you want to trace it and find that exact spot or close to it where it's at the very top or bottom, 0, 0. Okay? Make sure you put it as an ordered pair. All right, number 16. use the quadratic formula to solve the equation. It's already in standard form. A equals -5, B equals -24, and C equals 5. So I'm going to go ahead and plug these in. X equals negative B, which is -24, plus minus square root B squared, so -24 squared minus 4 times A, which is -5, times C, which is +5. And all of that is divided by 2 times A, which is -5. So simplify this. -24 becomes 24 plus minus. Let's put this big ugly mess in the calculator. Go back to my home screen. Parenthesis -24 squared minus 4 times A, which was -5, times C, which was +5. And I hit enter, and I get 676. So 24 plus minus the square root of 676, all divided by -10. That's interesting. We haven't done very many where our A was a negative. So 24 plus minus square root 676. Let's find out the square root of 676. Hopefully it's a nice number for us. And it's 26. Thank goodness. So this becomes 24 plus minus 26 divided by -10. Now, this is where I split it up. I'm going to get two different answers. One of them is 24 plus 26 divided by -10. The other one is 24 minus 26 divided by -10. So 24 plus 26 is 50 divided by -10 is -5. There's one of my answers. My other answer, 24 minus 26, is -2 divided by -10, which actually simplifies to +1/5. So my answers are -5 and 1/5. And again, if I want to check that on my calculator, y equals -5x squared minus 24x plus 5. When I look at the graph, I want to cross the x-axis at -5 and a little bit bigger than 0. So when I look at that graph, here's -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. And a little bit bigger than 0 is my other solution. So I feel good about my answers. Those are correct. Okay, number 17, quadratic formula. Well, this one looks a little bit nicer with the numbers. A equals 2. B equals, there's nothing in front of this x, but there is a 1. We just don't write it. So B equals 1 and C equals -3. So x equals -b, which is 1, plus minus square root b squared, which is 1 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is -3. All of that divided by 2 times a, which is 2. So I simplify -1 plus minus the square root. 1 squared is 1. 4 times 2 is 8. Times 3 is 24. And I've got two negatives, so that becomes 1 plus 24, which is just 25, divided by 2 times 2, which is 4. You can put that in your calculator. You'll still get 25. -1 plus minus square root of 25 is 5 divided by 4. So I get -1 plus 5 divided by 4 and -1 minus 5 divided by 4. -1 plus 5 is 4 divided by 4, which is 1. There's one answer. -1 minus 5 is -6 divided by 4, which is -3/2. So my answers are 1 and -3/2. If I want to check my work, I can plug this into my calculator, and I want to cross at 1 and a little bit bigger, or I guess at -1.5. So if I go here, 2x squared, let's clear this whole thing out. 2x squared plus x minus 3. And when I graph that, again, I'm looking that I hopefully cross at 1 and -1.5-ish. So if I look at my graph here, I cross at 1, perfect, and right in between -1 and -2. So I feel good about those answers as well. Okay, these are going to be a little bit out of order, but I want to talk about number 20 because I actually changed number 20 on the final. So number 20 is going to look like something that goes 2 plus 4i multiplied by 6 plus 3i. And all you have to do is FOIL. 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 3i is 6i. 4i times 6 is 24i. And 4i times 3i is 12i squared. So when I combine like terms, 6i plus 24i, that's 30i. So those go away. This I squared is what I need to be careful of because I squared equals -1. So 12 multiplied by -1 is actually -12. So this is -12 and this is +12. 12 minus 12 is 0. So my answer is actually going to be 0 plus 30i, which is just 30i. Yours probably won't come out to be 0. You're going to have a number out in front on the test. You might have something like 6 plus 30i, something in that form. All right? Okay, good luck. All right, number 18. Express in terms of I. So to get rid of negative under a square root, we change that. We put the I on the outside, square root 81. Well, the square root of 81 is just 9. So this is just I times 9. But I like to put the 9 first. 9i. And even though it says in the form of a plus bi, there is no a. There's just the b and the I. So that would be your final answer. Use the quadratic formula to solve. Another one. A equals 5, B equals -9, C equals 5. So X equals -9 plus or minus the square root of -9 squared minus 4 times A times C, all divided by 2 times 5. So 9 plus or minus square root, 81 minus, this is going to be 100. So 81 minus 100 is -19 divided by 2 times 5, which is, whoops, that's just 10. So square root of 19 doesn't exist. That's not a nice number, and 19's prime. So this is as simplified as we get, other than 9 plus or minus, I can get rid of that negative. I square root 19 divided by 10. And that would be your final answer. Because it wants an exact answer, which means it doesn't want decimals, which we can't do because of these i's. All right?